Of course, was the Pope appealing for a ceasefire in the conflict? For more on this now, I'm joined by Ruth Wasserman Lande, who is the former advisor to former Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres. Ruth, good to have you, and thank you very much for your time. I wanted to focus on some of the reaction that has been coming from human rights organizations in Israel who have urged to end this violence and come up with some kind of a peace or a ceasefire. It's reported that 10 of Israeli human rights organizations have urged the international community to act urgently to end settled violence against Palestinian communities in the occupied West Bank. Why are these calls falling on deaf ears?
So, a few things, sir. First of all, it's the President, Shimon Peres, not the Prime Minister. And secondly, it's not the West Bank. We are talking about the Gaza Strip. And this is a very big difference because in the Gaza Strip, the group or the movement that is in control completely since 2005, even 2006, when the Israeli Defense Forces have left completely, even digging out the graves of the Jews that were buried there, are Hamas. So Hamas is in charge of the Gaza Strip, not the West Bank. And the reason why I'm emphasizing it is because Hamas lynched the West Bank Fatah operatives. They're also Palestinians who were beforehand in charge in Gaza. So Hamas is not exactly a human rights advocate itself, and we need to understand the context in which these things are happening.
Yeah.
On October 7th in the morning, a Sabbath, a couple of thousand Hamas operatives entered civilian villages in Israel proper, undisputed territory, and out of the beds pulled out children, elderly, women, and men who were unarmed. They were sleeping and slaughtered them. They didn't only slaughter them, they raped them, they beheaded them, they tied them and burned them alive. This is the human rights so-called activists that are dug under the city of Gaza. They have fuel, they have water, they have food, whereas they use their own population on top of that underground city as not even human shields, but rather as sacrifices for something which I personally, as an Arabist and a Middle East expert, cannot fathom. Because since 2006, when they came into power, there were billions and billions of dollars given to them by Qatar and by the European Union. And yet, no infrastructure, no educational systems, no employment opportunities, no sustainable sources of income. Rather, what was used by that funding was those underground tunnels that served to plan and execute the horrifying, heinous things that I described earlier. So what Israel is doing, sir, is not attacking. Israel is retaliating to make these heinous crimes never happen again. There is a big difference.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm failing here. Where I'm failing to understand, you've got close to 30 non-governmental organizations that are raising an alarm. In fact, they are saying what the Israeli government is doing in many cases is actively participating in anti-Palestinian violence.
I don't understand this terminology. As a liberal and as a person who belongs to a very central party in Israel, I spent, by the way, my entire life working with Arab communities, both in Israel and abroad. I speak Arabic, I studied Islam. I don't understand what that means, sir. Let me ask a question, and in order to emphasize why I'm saying this. If, God forbid, your family was attacked, women in the family were gang raped and tortured, and members of your family were kidnapped by horrific terrorists, would you not expect your government to do something? What would you expect your government to do? To negotiate peace with an organization which very openly says, and they say it all the time, we just didn't believe how horrific they actually are, that they want to destroy the land of Israel and all of the Jews throughout the entire universe. They say this. Would
you expect your government to kill innocent civilians?
God forbid. That's why the IDF is calling in Arabic, in writing, and they are calling on the phones to people in the buildings in the northern area of Gaza, not in the central Gaza, not in southern Gaza, in the northern area of Gaza where the headquarters and the military operatives of Hamas are situated. Yeah. They are calling and asking people again and again. I don't know any military that does that. Yeah. Please go out. We don't want your land. We don't want Gaza. Believe me. Nobody wants Gaza. Neither the Egyptians, even Abu Mazen from the West Bank, the president of the Palestinian people, doesn't want Gaza. You know why? Because they understand what's there. We are asking the people, the civilians, please go out. We don't want to hurt you.
How do you expect 12,000 displaced civilians, right? Including those in hospitals. Listen to this.
12,000.
The Palestinian Red Crescent says Israel is ordering an evacuation of a hospital. There are sick people there. They cannot be evacuated. How do you remove people who are in hospital who are sick?
It's temporary.
How do you remove them, though? How do you remove them? They are sick. They can't be moved at this particular point. They are sick.
Sir,
they are terminal.
I will answer you. First of all, it's very odd to me that those humanitarian organizations are not asking another very obvious question. Why is Hamas operating from underneath a hospital? Isn't this an obvious question? Why is an organization that says openly in Arabic, many people in the world speak this language, you do not have to rely on my words, openly that they want to murder and kill, they have civilian Israelis, Jewish and Americans and European citizens, Thai citizens, underneath that hospital as hostages. Yeah. Why are they operating under a hospital? Why isn't this question being answered?
Where are these individuals? Because the reports say there are 12,000 unarmed, displaced civilians, with a majority of them being children and women who are under a hospital building. And some of the people there are in the intensive care unit.
First of all, intensive care units, by the way, we treat some people from Gaza in our hospitals for free. This is Israel. But the Egyptians have offered to make a field hospital along the Rafah border in order to be able to have injured or sick or needing for care Palestinians be treated in that hospital. If there was a will to remove them, believe me, the IDF would allow their removal in order to bombard only the murderers. We don't have any inclination to kill anybody who is not involved. And let me remind you, sir, that 120,000 Israelis are refugees in their own country. You know why? Because we have thousands of rockets raining on our heads from the south, from Hamas, and from the north, from Hezbollah. Hezbollah has been a terrorist organization officially by most countries in the world. Where are those humanitarian organizations? Why, when it comes to Jewish people, there is a double standard?
So why would a world body like the WHO say to Israel, it's impossible to evacuate hospitals full of patients without endangering their lives? Would you still insist on this evacuation?
It is possible.
These are world doctors who are looking at the situation saying it is impossible to remove these people without endangering their lives.
Saying that.
These are not Palestinian doctors. This is the World Health Organization.
The World Health Organization is a United Nations body, and the United Nations has made it clear that there is a majority of Arab votes in it, anti-Israeli and anti-Zionist in epitome. We've seen that. We've seen 1,400 civilians not murdered, brutally massacred, gang raped, tortured, okay? We only want to have the Hamas who perpetrated these crimes removed. Okay, so we are not going to let them continue because we cannot allow our citizens to be murdered, raped, massacred, and tortured. So we will help medically to remove those sick people and wait and allow them to be removed safely until we can get to the murderers, because the murderers, they don't care about the sick people at all. If they cared, they wouldn't be underneath the hospital. They wouldn't be underneath the schools. They wouldn't send the rockets from private homes, endangering their own people. They wouldn't execute those Palestinians who are trying to go south like the IDF suggested so they don't get killed. The Hamas doesn't care about its people. I remind you again, they lynched Palestinians who belong to the Fatah. You can see it. It's all documented. They shot them in the kneecaps and threw them out of the windows, and those Palestinians, Fatah operatives, ran away to be saved by the IDF in 2005. It's not a long time ago. This is the Hamas. It's a murderous, completely valueless movement which intends cruelty, killing, carnage. This is not a body that can be dealt with in any way at all. The Egyptians know that.
Hamas
the Palestinians know that.
Is not a government. Israel is. And how do you impede aid to civilians? How do you impede aid to civilians and say that does not constitute a crime against humanity?
Humanitarian aid is being sent. By the way, I don't know if you know, sir, but the water is controlled in Gaza not by Israel. 89% of the water is controlled by Hamas, because Hamas is not exactly a movement anymore. It's not exactly a terror organization like ISIS. It's the governing body, the only governing body in Gaza, because that's what they demanded. They lynched the Fatah, who were their opposition, Palestinian, and the IDF left in 2005. So they are indeed the governing body. They have electricity. They control 89% of the water. Why are they not giving it to their people? So you know what? Fine. We are giving it to the people. We are Egypt. We are providing the humanitarian aid, not in the northern part of Gaza, in the center and the south of Gaza, because we need the people evacuated temporarily so that we can kill those operatives that had carnaged our people.
Ruth, Wasserman, Lande, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
That is the former advisor to the President of Israel, President Shimon Peres.